If I were to run into you in the 1970s, if you're old enough to remember those days, I mean, I'm not, so I would have to time travel, but anyways, if I walked up to you or say anybody working at an American dealership, and I just casually show you what an American car dealership will look like today in 2025, you would be appalled. You know, the bright future of the automotive industry, no flying cars, just ugly blobs. I mean, here's an example of Ford's sedan lineup for 1975. Just look at these cars. So many sedans. Here's a dealer brochure from the same year. You know, Ford through the 60s and even the 70s really did have an amazing selection of sedans. Now, would you like to see what Ford has to offer for sedans today? Let me just pull it up really quick. Oh yeah, there are none. What about Chrysler? Surely Chrysler, the sedan company, the company that built their entire business on making quality cars for regular people. Surely they have some cars, right? Nope, just a van. Literally just a van. What about GM? I mean, throughout history, GM arguably has had some of the best and most varied sedan offerings, right? Let's look at GM's sedan options today. Literally the Cadillac CT. That's it. Buicks are all SUVs and only SUVs. Chevys are only SUVs and trucks, and also the Corvette. How did we get to this point? Why did the American sedan, this icon of American motoring, why did it die such a sudden and tragic death? Let's find out. Now, before we get too far though, I want to show you guys something that has genuinely impressed me. This is the Redtiger F17 Elite, the world's first full night color dash cam with in-cabin view. I've been testing it out, and this thing captures crystal clear, full color footage inside the car, even at night under streetlights. Perfect if you do a lot of city or late night driving. The front camera records in stunning 4K, paired with the Sony Starvis 2 sensors front and rear, so you can actually zoom in and read license plates clearly within about 5 meters, even in mixed light. It's a full 3-channel setup, front, rear, and inside, all balanced with HDR, which means no blown out headlights or dark corners. For me, it's important with this kind of product that it's just usable and friendly, and you can tell that Redtiger have worked really hard in this area. What's great with the F17 Elite is this quality touchscreen, making it so that you have all these built-in features and they're easy to access. You can do things like adjust the resolution or turn on and off features like voice control or switch to different modes. It's really nice and really quality. Plus, with Wi-Fi 6 transfer speeds up to 30 megabytes per second, grabbing footage on your phone takes seconds instead of minutes. So if you're serious about documenting your drive, whether it's for safety, peace of mind, or just sharing the road, the Redtiger F17 Elite nails it. You guys can check it out using the link in the description, and also grab it with my exclusive discount code. Big thanks to Redtiger for sponsoring this video, and let's dive in. In the early years of the automobile, most vehicles were these kind of open-top runabouts and touring cars. They were simple, exposed machines, and in terms of protection from the elements, they didn't really offer much. As driving became more common and also as roads improved, automakers started to experiment with enclosed bodies that shielded passengers from wind and rain and dust. These enclosed designs evolved into what became known as sedans, and that term was actually borrowed from horse-drawn carriages that had similar enclosed compartments. By the 1910s and 1920s, the sedan really represented a new direction for American car design. Manufacturers had started to focus on things like comfort and refinement and also safety, and so enclosed cabins really gave drivers privacy, and also on top of this, advances in heating and upholstery really made these cars just more pleasant for long-distance drives, which was important because they were becoming reliable enough to actually take on occasional road trips. The sedan really became a symbol of progress and sophistication, an indicator that cars were no longer just for hobbyists or for the wealthy, but built for everyday families. As mass production took hold, this shift away from these carriage-like designs to the sedan was really cemented. Ford's Model A, introduced in 27, and also Chevy's Master Series in the 30s, brought the sedan body style to the general public. These models had steel roofs, roll-up windows, and reliable engines at prices that the average American family could afford. As ownership spread, the sedan came to represent not only transportation, but also upward mobility, a family's move toward, stability and success. By the 1930s, the sedan had become the default shape of the American automobile and the foundation of what would become decades of domestic car culture. After World War II, the American automobile industry really entered its heyday. The 50s and 60s were all about rapid economic growth, suburban expansion, and of course, this was all also tied to the construction of the interstate highway system. During this era, the sedan became the default vehicle for the American family, a practical, comfortable, and stylish way to navigate this new and exciting suburban landscape. Design took center stage as automakers competed to capture the optimism of this age. The 50s brought sweeping tail fins, heavy chrome trim, and jet-inspired styling to the sedan. This era really reflected the country's fascination with space and technology and just this hopeful, futuristic spirit. By the 60s, designs grew cleaner and a little more simple and formal, but they also got bigger and more powerful and also more luxurious. It is true that in many ways, cars peaked in terms of performance and reliability in the 90s, but it's hard to deny that in terms of design and styling, cars probably peaked in the 60s. And sedans of this period, they were really like rolling architecture, built not just for transportation, but as statements of your own personal success and your own identity. The big three automakers, that is GM, Ford, and Chrysler, dominated the market, and they structured their brands around these clear sedan hierarchies. Chevy, Ford, and Dodge offered entry-level family sedans, Buick, Mercury, and Chrysler kind of served the mid-range, and then Cadillac, Lincoln rested at the top tier of American luxury. This tiered system made it so that pretty much every household could find a sedan that matched their income and their aspirations, but these were all vehicles that a person could be proud to own. In American culture, the sedan became a symbol of stability and success. It was dad's car, it was the family car, often the company car, a fixture of driveways and highways and office parking lots across the country. Models like the Bel Air and the Galaxy, the Chrysler New Yorker, the Cadillac Fleetwood, these sedans really defined this era. They were a picture of post-war confidence and really the embodiment of the American dream on four wheels, and then it all went to crap. By the early 1970s, the dominance of the American sedan really began to weaken. The decade opened with big, powerful cars that still reflected the optimism of the previous era, but this confidence was short-lived. The 1973 oil crisis exposed a major flaw in Detroit's approach. Most American sedans were large, heavy, and really fuel-hungry. And as gasoline prices spiked and shortages hit across the country, the full-size family car suddenly started to feel like a burden instead of a necessity. This period became known as the malaise era, just kind of a word used to describe negativity. American sedans were slowly getting bloated and inefficient. Stricter emissions and safety regulations cut performance, and the cars added weight and complexity, and this really hurt handling and performance and even reliability even more. The result was a generation of vehicles that looked big but were really underpowered and outdated, because at the same time, Japanese manufacturers started to get a foothold in the American market with a very different formula for the sedan: compact, efficient, and reliable cars from the likes of Toyota, think the Corolla, but also Honda's Accord. The Datsun 510 proved that smaller cars could be better. These cars started easily, they ran for years with minimal maintenance, and perhaps most importantly, they were easy. They had great fuel economy. These qualities really appealed to families that were tired of frequent breakdowns and long gas station lines. Detroit tried to respond with downsized models, but the effort was pretty superficial. American manufacturers focused on maintaining chrome and plush interiors and a sense of luxury, rather than actually rethinking the fundamentals of sedan engineering. It's also worth noting that European automakers refined their own take on the sedan. Brands like BMW and Mercedes-Benz and Volvo, they focused on balance and handling and engineering precision and just rethinking all of the little bits of engineering that make a great car. So for example, the BMW 2002 and later 3 Series gave sharp driving dynamics that American car owners were not used to, especially when it came to sedans. These cars really were efficient packages, and they set the template for the modern sports sedan as we know it. Mercedes focused on long-term durability and also understated luxury, while Volvo leaned more on safety and practicality. These cars really showed that a sedan could be engaging and sensible, but usable and practical. and they would influence a generation of enthusiasts and really reshape global expectations for what a well-built car should feel like. And all of this helped to shift perception away from viewing American manufacturers as really the leaders and pioneers of the sedan class to falling behind, and all of that happened pretty fast. By the 1980s, the American sedan was really at a crossroad. The oil shocks of the previous decade had reshaped what consumers wanted, and new technologies were beginning to redefine what a family car could be. Things like front-wheel drive, for example, really transformed this segment. Sedans got more interior space, better traction, and better fuel economy. Think cars like the Accord, but also Chrysler's K-Car platform and the Ford Taurus. Now, the Ford Taurus was a milestone in American sedan design at this time. It was aerodynamic, it had modern interior, it looked like a car from the future compared to all the American boxy sedans of the 70s. And I think it did give people hope for American sedans going forward, because it did show that Detroit could still innovate when they really wanted to. But even as the Taurus helped to revitalize Ford's image, foreign competition was quietly building a new standard for reliability and also long-term value. The Honda Accord and Toyota Camry became default family sedans of the American middle class, often built in domestic factories in places like Ohio and Kentucky. These cars offered smooth engines, consistent quality, and understated refinement, and they soon defined what the American family car looked like, even if they weren't designed in Detroit. At the same time, many domestic sedans lost their sense of identity. Brand overlap and cost-cutting turned these once distinct nameplates into just basically indistinguishable fleet cars. The sedan was no longer a statement of aspiration. It had just kind of become ordinary. Basically just basic transportation, and the people that were doing it best were not the companies in America. So up to the point of the new millennium, I think it's fairly safe to say that the groundwork was laid for American sedans to potentially disappear altogether. The American sedan was at a crossroad. Manufacturers like Ford and Chevy, they had to make a decision. They either were going to invest heavily in car development, or they had to shift their focuses elsewhere. In many ways, the cultural tide shifted again at this time. Suburban lifestyles, outdoor marketing, and the growing idea of safety through size really made SUVs the next family vehicle of choice. The high driving position felt commanding, and even this promise of all-weather capability appealed to consumers, even if, they never left the pavement. Even minivans, which were once the practical successor to the family sedan, they fell out of favor as well. And SUVs and crossovers were taking their place. And so American manufacturers jumped on this. This was really their future. And of course, for automakers, this was all financial. Trucks and SUVs were classified as light trucks, which allowed manufacturers to meet looser fuel economy regulations and also safety regulations. And also, they could earn way more profit margins than they could with sedans. And so the result was that sedans received fewer updates and less marketing support. And people started to view cars as basically SUVs, like a crossover is a car. The term car became synonymous with just vehicle. And I think this helped this shift away from even recognizing the sedan as the car. Like, I would be curious to ask someone born in, let's say, 2015. I mean, if I were to ask my children what a car is or to draw a car, they probably would draw a sedan. But I think, they've been around cars more. But if you ask just a random suburban kid, to draw a car, I think they wouldn't draw a sedan. I think they would probably draw an SUV. The traditional four-door car that had once carried the American family was now seen as just a dying format in this new SUV world. By the 2020s, the American sedan had pretty much all but vanished from all of the mainstream lineups. Ford discontinued the Fusion, the Focus, and the Fiesta. They shifted entirely to trucks and SUVs. GM followed suit, killing the Impala. There was the Buick Regal, gone, and then also soon the Malibu. Chrysler was left with a single holdout, the long-running 300, a design dating back to 2005, and then that ultimately died. And so in the end, Cadillac is the only company making traditional sedans with its CT4 and CT5 models, which are aimed more at the luxury market. And even they are not really all that popular. Like, you don't see them that much. They're barely hanging on. I would not be surprised at all if Cadillac ends the CT within the next 5 to 10 years. Despite being pretty cool and pretty competitive in its class to European rivals, people don't want American sedans and American companies don't want to make them. You know, what is the future of the American sedan? I would say that the Tesla Model S and Model 3 really came to represent the only real example of American sedans becoming popular again in the 21st century, and that's because they represented a more futuristic take on the sedan. Highly efficient as fully electric vehicles, super impressive in terms of safety ratings and forward thinking in terms of tech, even if I may not love all of that stuff. You know, I hate on Tesla quite a bit, but I do at some point want to make a video about the Model S and its development because it's not only fascinating and somewhat scandalous, the Model S does exist as probably the greatest electric car ever made, and in some ways, the greatest and most influential modern American sedan. It helped revive at least one kind of the American sedan, namely the electric one. So, you know, perhaps the future of American sedans lie in EVs. Again, though, it's hard to not notice that most American manufacturers want to focus not only on SUVs solely, but when it comes to EVs, they just want to make giant electric SUVs, not electric cars per se. So I think it's safe to say that the American sedan is basically dead, and I don't think it's coming back anytime soon. Maybe we'll come to our senses at some point. Who knows? Well, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next one. Drive safe.